Hi and welcome to Basic Folk, where we have honest conversations with folk musicians. It is me, Cindy House, the host of this podcast, joined today by the one and only Lizzie No. Hello, Lizzie.
Hello, Cindy. How are you doing today, my dear friend?
I am doing okay, hanging in there. People may have heard, you may not have heard, that I had a giant dog named Willis, who is like 115 pounds, Newfoundland Mastiff, king of the world, just a extraordinary rock star of a dog, and he very suddenly died, and it is hitting me pretty hard. Just like taking it day by day, and man, I mean, it's different than when a person passes away, but this was like the first dog that was like truly my dog and my wife's dog. She got him when he was a puppy. He was 9 years old. I have like lived pretty intensely with him for maybe 3 years. And I feel like he was in like such good spirits in the last 2 years of his life. And it just is like so shocking and so sudden. And I just feel like very heavy with grief. But I know that like many people have been here. If you see me not posting on Instagram, or, if I owe you an email, it's because I just am wrecked and all I can do is look at videos of Willis the dog.
I'm so sorry, Cindy. Willis was a really, really special dog. And a lot of my earliest memories of you are of us recording podcast episodes during which Willis would like lumber in and settle down under the desk, which was his chill spot. Mm-hmm. He loved to lie under the desk and just be near you and touching you at all times. And he was such a gentle, wonderful guy. And I'm glad that we talk about our pets on Basic Folk because it's such a deep connection. And you're right that it's not the same as a person, but they mean a lot.
When I found out the news, I wanted to note that I was with my friend Bridget and her partner Lawrence. I was not with Willis when he died, and I was with the two of them, and we just had a very beautiful and emotional memorial for her mom. Mm-hmm. And it was just such a weird thing to have like immediate perspective. It's like the first person after I found out that Willis was gone. I mean, Bridget and Lawrence were there just being amazing friends. And, the first person that I called was my mom. It's just unimaginable to me what Bridget has been going through. And, I just appreciate her friendship and her presence. And, she's just been like an unwavering presence in my life. So hats off to Bridget, who I know.
Oh, we love Bridget.
We do.
I'm sending you a hug, Cindy.
Thanks,
and I would like everyone to, if you have a pet, go give that pet a hug right now. You can pause the show, hug your pet, and then come back and continue the episode because you can never have enough hugs, and you can never kiss your puppy on the head too many times.
Oh, definitely not. Yeah. And Dottie the cat has been really stepping it up, getting in my face. Mm-hmm. letting me squeeze her, not too hard.
Mm-hmm. I don't know if people have the Basic Folk merch, but there is an incredible illustration of Dottie the cat on the Basic Folk t-shirt. This is really like a pet-centric podcast community.
Yeah. I feel like my Zoom just disconnected.
Hang on, I can see you again. Okay, it was frozen for a sec.
Technology here at Basic Folk is not great.
I was crying earlier over my inability to connect headphones to any of my devices. So that's just keeping it 100, keeping it real. A lot of times we're very chipper and cheerful on this podcast, but today life just has us down, and that's where we're at. Welcome
that's right.
aboard.
I also want to say that like crying over technology is totally valid because we went away for like a month, and when I came back, I couldn't get the printer to work, and I was in a similar state of despair.
It just makes me feel so helpless. And I also feel like there's some internalized sexism that makes me feel very bashful about how hard some technological issues are for me. Like, I want to be like, I'm every woman. It's all in me. Any headphones you want connected, baby, I'll do it easily. And that's just not the case. It's just not the case. I need help sometimes.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Well, thanks for continuing to listen to Basic Folk through our absolute grief and despair, emotional turmoil. If you do want to support the podcast, you can. You can sign up for our newsletter. You can follow us on social media where you can see pictures of Willis the dog and Dottie the cat and Lizzie No and also me, Cindy. And you can find us at Basic Folk Pod. If you want to, you can make a financial contribution and keep us afloat at basicfolk.com/donate. And Lizzie, let's get to our guest today, Molly Tuttle. Please take it away.
Molly Tuttle. I am such a huge fan of Molly Tuttle. I love her songwriting. I feel like what I love most about her is her songwriting, even though for many people, her dazzling guitar playing is the star of the show. Growing up in Palo Alto, California, Molly was surrounded by music. Her dad was a teacher at Griffin Stringed Instruments, which is not so coincidentally where I got the pickups installed on my mini harp, which just goes to show you that folk music is a very, very small world. And there are a few beloved hubs that a lot of us turn to. Molly took to the guitar early and intensely, eventually earning a scholarship to the very prestigious Berklee College of Music. But I think it was those early days growing up in California, playing and listening to music with her family and attending bluegrass festivals where she basked in the glow of the jam that set the tone for her warm and collaborative approach to playing music. While at Berklee, Molly formed a band called the Goodbye Girls and cut her teeth touring in Scandinavia afterwards. When we dug into the Goodbye Girls, I had some questions for Molly because she's not just a wonderful musician, but she's also a very well-known capital woman in music. And I wanted to get the chance to talk with her about what it means to be a woman in music. And also, when you're in a band called the Goodbye Girls, what it means to explicitly say, we are women in music. She was also the first woman to win the IBMA Guitarist of the Year award. So she has a ton of perspective on what it's like to be a very visible woman in music and to be asked about that a lot. So it's kind of juicy. I also got to talk with Molly about her debut album, When You're Ready, which is what got me hooked on her music, and her beautiful covers album, But I'd Rather Be With You. If there are any deadheads in our audience, they are going to love that album. And then we started sifting through the layers of her latest bluegrass album, Crooked Tree, which features her brand new backing band, Golden Highway. Molly took a really intense approach of studying and honoring the traditions of bluegrass while adding her own contemporary perspective. So she kind of dug into many of the pillars of bluegrass, the murder ballad, the shiny stacked vocal harmonies, the lightning fast guitar playing, you name it, and then made it all her own, kind of proving over and over that she is one of the stars of the genre. I think the album is phenomenal, and she's a delightful person to talk to.
That's awesome. I am excited to hear this interview. We were going to share a clip from Molly's new album. Are you okay if I play Big Backyard? That one is like such a banger.
Yes, I was actually going to ask if you wanted to bring that one, if you wanted to play that one, because at first we had chosen a different song, and then I was like, what I think is so fascinating about Molly is like her collaboration and her sense of sharing, and that's what that song is all about.
Old Crow's on this, right? Old Crow Medicine Show and Molly Tuttle. Okay, great. Well, let's hear it. Molly Tuttle, Big Backyard, and then we'll get to our conversation with Lizzie No and Molly Tuttle on Basic Folk.
Yours is a bend in the Hudson River, her backyard, Sunset Boulevard, and his is the heart of the Mojave Desert. My backyard's got an acre of prairie, and yours has miles and miles of pavement.
Thank you so much for talking with me, Molly.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So I want to jump right in because you've had such a prolific career, even in your young life, and I have a million questions. So what are your earliest memories of learning guitar? Did you have a practice regimen, even like as an elementary school kid?
I had I started playing when I was 8 years old, so I was in elementary school, and I think my early practice regimen was just kind of loosely learning tunes from my dad, kind of learning new chords, and then after a couple years, I got really into it and started kind of making up my own practice regimens where I would challenge myself to play for an hour a day or 2 hours a day, and that's when I started really progressing. But that was kind of my early teenage years, or around age 12 or 13, I started getting really into practicing.
And what were you practicing in those days? Like, were you listening to the radio and trying to emulate? Were you like, did you have music books? What was your material?
It was a lot of like fiddle tunes, bluegrass songs that I'd hear around the house. My dad's a bluegrass musician and he's a music teacher, so I always grew up hearing the music that he listened to, and then kind of from there I branched out and found the stuff that I was into. Like on YouTube, I'd find a singer or a song that I really liked and try to learn it, and or maybe I'd try to learn a song that my friends were listening to at school. So it was kind of a mix of stuff.
Wow. I read that your dad was a teacher at Griffin Stringed Instruments. This isn't so much of a question and more of like a let's go down memory lane, because I love that store. Like, it is the best quality instruments and like maintenance. I got such a great harp setup from them like 10
awesome.
years ago, and it's like served me so well. Did you have music teachers who had a big impact on you early on?
Yeah, I mean, my dad was my first teacher, and then I used to go into Griffin if I wanted to learn like a different style. I remember I learned some blues guitar from a teacher at Griffin, and then I learned clawhammer banjo from another teacher there at Griffin, Tom Culbertson. I learned some clawhammer banjo from, and this guy Walter Jebby I learned like some basic blues guitar from at Griffin. So those were a couple other of my early teachers, and then once I went to Berklee in Boston, I had a bunch of guitar teachers.
Oh, I bet. How do you think being a Bay Area native has shaped you as an artist? Like, do you think you were destined to be a deadhead? Like, are there parts of where you're from that people still hear in your music today?
Yeah, I mean, I think the bluegrass scene out here that I grew up in is really influenced by Jerry Garcia and people like Peter Rowan and Grisman, and then the people who I heard growing up were like Lori Lewis and Kathy Kallick, and there are so many strong women out here leading their own bands. So the roots music community was just really empowering for a young girl growing up playing this music.
When did you start writing your own songs?
When I was about 15 or 16.
Tell me, like, what were your topics then? What inspired you to write?
A lot of times I would just kind of write stream of consciousness style, like just kind of mumble until I felt like I had some lyric ideas. I guess just kind of basic teenager stuff like love or crushes that I had on people. Yeah, I don't know. Or like changes, because I was moving away to college, like big life changes, dealing with that. I didn't write that many story songs or songs that weren't like personal experiences.
Yeah, I think that's where a lot of people get started. Like, it's hard to write what you don't know, especially when you're a teenager. Like, I feel like everyone's first song has to be like either a copy of somebody else's material or like about a crush or something in between.
It's kind of like a journal entry song.
You won a scholarship to Berklee College of Music, which for some of our listeners who might not know, it's one of the fanciest, schmanciest music schools around. Did you feel like you went in with high expectations because of that scholarship? Like, I imagine you had already some idea of what you were interested in musically, what you might have wanted your career to look like. So how did like getting your degree fit into that bigger plan?
Yeah, I think for me, I wasn't as focused on the degree as I was on the experience of going to Berklee and meeting people and getting to spend that time just solely focused on music and improving my musical skills. And that's pretty much what I did. I was there for like 2 years and focused a lot on guitar and also songwriting and met a ton of people. And I still play music with some of the people I met there. It was a really cool experience.
Was Boston like a culture and weather shock for you?
Yeah, it was. Not so much culture, but definitely weather. And then the people, I think just like taking the T everywhere and the buses everywhere, like the people are definitely a little less friendly. You get like the East Coast kind of freeze, I guess. But the weather was the worst part for me. It was pretty brutal after, I think I was there for, well, I got there in January. I started halfway through the year, and the first winter wasn't so bad.
No, Molly, no, not January. You have to go to Boston in like September.
I know. It was like weirdly the mildest winter though when I arrived. And I was like, this is not so bad. And then it got worse and worse the next 2 winters, and I was like, I'm done after.
Oh my God.
After those 2 years.
What was your focus on like guitar-wise while you were at Berklee? Like, did you have goals of like, this is the type of guitar player I want to evolve towards?
Yeah, I think like I was just, when I first got there, I really just wanted to focus on my own thing and kind of improving the skills that I already had and getting better at improvising and learning the fingerboard more. And then as I was there, I kind of, my mind was open to all these different styles of guitar playing, and I started to see it more as just like an instrument that you can do so many different things on, versus just kind of before going to Berklee feeling more like stuck in my lane, I guess.
Right. Can you give an example of that? Like, who is a guitarist, or like, is there a style that you didn't expect to find yourself inspired by, but you really got into while you were at Berklee?
Yeah, I think like one teacher I had, this guy Dave Tronzo, he was kind of like a free jazz, like improvisational style player. And he would give me these like chord progressions of songs that he'd written that were really outside the box, like they were chords that I wasn't at all comfortable playing over. And at first it felt like I had a major block, and I really didn't feel like I could play over these chords, and it was really frustrating to me. And then as I studied with him for about a year, and by the end I really enjoyed just kind of exploring the fingerboard, not like playing in a specific style, but just kind of exploring different chord changes in a more like free way.
That's really interesting. I think like for me, one of the best parts about being a professional musician is that it's your job to learn new things all the time.
Yeah.
And that's something that's like really tough as an adult to do. Like to like approach something that you're not good at right away and push through. That is a really big challenge still. Like, are there styles that you kind of don't dare approach now, or are you still like pretty fearless about approaching new genres and styles of guitar playing?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like now I'm more just kind of focused on what I'm playing for my shows, writing songs, and I don't spend as much time like practicing guitar and learning new styles. But I have wanted to like get better at electric guitar, and that was kind of one thing I wanted to focus on during the pandemic, but I ended up kind of like more focusing on songwriting and did kind of work on some electric guitar, but still haven't felt like I have gotten completely comfortable on it. So yeah, that's kind of one of my goals that still I haven't really fully explored.
I believe in you wholeheartedly for what that's worth. I would love to hear more also about your band, the Goodbye Girls. Was that a group that formed at Berklee?
Yeah, it was.
Why was it important to you? I mean, it's called the Goodbye Girls, and I feel like this is something that's going to maybe come up a bunch in our conversation. Like, why was it important to you to say, like, we are a female group?
Yeah, it kind of came about in a roundabout way because Leanna, the fiddle player, she is from Sweden, and she had a booking agent from Sweden say, like, she was over in Boston studying at Berklee, and this booking agent she knew was like, I'm going to book you a tour in Sweden, a 2-week tour, and
Awesome.
just put together a band of Berklee students. We want to bring a band over to Sweden from Boston. So she asked Allison, the banjo player in the band, because they're really good friends, and Allison asked me to join, and then I was roommates with Brittany, the bass player, so I said we should get Brittany to round out the group. And we had no intention of making
I think Allison is a basic folk alum too. Sorry to interrupt you. Cool. Some small world.
Yeah, so we didn't really have the intention of making it an all-female group, but it just worked out that way. And then when we were trying to think of band names, there's this tune called Goodbye Girls, I'm Going to Boston. We thought it was kind of fun since we started in Boston. And we also thought, like, there's so many band names that are all men with boys, like the Bluegrass Boys, the
Hackensaw Ridge
Punch
Boys,
Brothers, lots of boys and brothers or whatever. Anyway, all male bands are always referencing themselves as like boys. So we were like, why can't we be girls? And it kind of came back to haunt us because then, of course, every promoter or person announcing us would be like, these girls, aren't they so awesome? And we're like, can you not call us girls? But we're calling ourselves girls, but that's fine, I guess. So,
I feel like it's not that hard to figure out. Like, my rule is like, if you are a woman, it is completely fine for you to call yourself a girl and like refer to like, but for someone in a professional context to like refer to you as a girl is so wild to me.
Yeah,
that is a trip.
So yeah, it was like I like the band name still and I stand by it, but it did get like slightly annoying at times where like, should we change our band name? Like everyone's just calling us girls all the time.
Ugh, I weep for you. So like since then you've received so much acclaim as an instrumentalist, a songwriter, but also like the first female this and that, and like a woman musician. And I imagine you get a million interview questions about what it's like to be in a female body and a performer and a musician. Like, how does that feel to you now as like a full-grown adult? Like, does that come with responsibility? Does it feel like a burden? Does it feel like something that you try to, you know, shake up stereotypes or anything like that?
Like the questions or being a...
The questions and the like, so much of what I've read about you is Molly Tuttle is one of the great, female artists doing this and that. First, woman to be instrumentalist of the year. And
yeah, like at first when I guess it started when I won the IBMA Guitar Player Award, and then all of a sudden everyone's like, how does it feel to be the first woman? How does it feel to be a woman playing guitar? Yeah, I kind of got, like, tired of answering the question after a while.
Yeah.
At first, I, like, was fine and was like, it's great. I hope to, like, inspire young girls playing guitar or whatever. But then after a while, I was like, that question specifically, like, I get asked a lot, like, do you want to inspire, like, the younger generation of girls playing guitar? And I'm like, sounds like a trick question, because what am I going to say? Like, no, I don't want to. No. But also I don't really think about it that much, and I don't think you're going to ask, like, a male guitar player, do you hope to inspire young boys to play guitar? Like, I don't know. I just play guitar, and I love playing guitar. I think you're either going to play guitar or you're not, and I think girls are going to play guitar more likely if they see women playing guitar, which is definitely a good thing, but... I mean, I think...
also that type of framing, like, downplays how many boys could be inspired by your work as well.
That's true,
like, you don't need to also be a girl to be inspired by a female guitarist.
Yeah, totally. But yeah, I think, like, I don't know, I think there are definitely things that people should talk about more, about, like, making the guitar spaces more comfortable for women, especially like going into guitar stores. I think I read like most guitars are sold to women these days, but they're only like mainly just buying them online because for obvious reason guitar stores are so annoying to go into if you're female presenting at all, and it's like
It's
everyone's so
horrible. I don't know if our
condescending.
listeners have like come across this, but anytime I'm in a guitar store, and like sometimes it'll be funny, like if I go in with a female musician friend, and then the employees are like, they ask you the most condescending questions. And like I've even been told, like, be careful, that's expensive. Like when I'm trying out a guitar.
Yeah.
God, like I would love to design, like, have you heard of The Wing?
No.
It was this like female-centered co-working space where like women could go, like WeWork, but for women.
Oh, cool.
I would love to have like a musical instrument store that is like female-centric. I think that would be heaven on earth for me personally.
There's a cool store like that in Nashville called Fanny's House of Music.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
I've heard of Fanny's.
Yeah, they're awesome.
So I first came across your music when I heard the When You're Ready album, and it really blew me away. I think it's such a searching album. It's a heart-wrenching album. And a lot of that comes down to like the vocal performances. So did you have inspirations or references when it came to the singing on that album?
I think I was like influenced by a lot of the kind of indie rock that I listened to as a teenager. People like, like Kate Bush is someone who's coming back a lot right now, but I really like her. And people like Portishead I listen to a lot, and Amy Mann is someone I was listening to a lot when I was recording the album. I love her singing.
I listen to Amy Mann like probably like 6 or 7 hours a week. I don't think she has any bad songs.
I know, she's amazing. Yeah, so those were some of my influences. And like Nico Case, I love her singing so much.
Oh yeah. Do you feel like you sing differently? Like, I mean, this might be an obvious question, but maybe for folks that like don't have experience recording, how does it feel different to like sing with just maybe yourself and the guitar versus like singing in the booth on top of the full band arrangement? Like, do you find that you get different vocal performances in that setting?
Yeah, definitely. For me, like, I'm pretty much always singing with my guitar, so it's kind of weird for me to do it later without. And I definitely overthink it a little bit. Like, if I don't have my guitar, I'm just kind of listening really close. I'm maybe less in the groove musically, like in the rhythm of the music, because I feel so much of that with my hands when I'm like strumming guitar.
Yeah, it's really a full body exercise, I bet.
Yeah, totally. So, but I also can kind of take my time with it more if I'm not playing along live and just do as many takes as I want and kind of explore my vocal range a little bit more. So there's like pros and cons to each, I'd say.
Are you pretty intuitive with like self-producing your vocals, or do you like to have someone else at the controls saying like, try it again this way, or letting you know like, okay, I think we have it? Or do you prefer to like make those calls yourself?
Yeah, I think I like to have someone else there. But then the final vocal track, I like to listen to myself and be like, hey, I want to change this and this and this.
Yes, there's a lot of power in, having a hand in your own comps.
Totally.
But I'd Rather Be With You, to me, is like such a turn from When You're Ready. It's such a cool covers album. And all of our listeners should go listen to it for like a sense of the breadth and depth of your musical knowledge. Like there are covers from like Rancid to FKA Twigs and the Rolling Stones. So how the hell did you build your song list? Like, how did you narrow it down?
It was a long process because I was working with Tony Berg, who's an amazing producer, and he's very selective as well. Like we were both pretty selective about the songs. I would bring him a song that I thought was really cool, and he'd be like, no, I don't think this is the right fit. And then vice versa, he'd send me songs and I'd be like, I just can't see myself singing that. So we kind of had to come to like this group of songs that we both felt really good about. We're both kind of like, we were both very opinionated about the songs that we thought should go on the album. And so, yeah, I think the ones that we ended up with were ones that we both felt like I was bringing a totally new perspective too. We didn't want it to just sound like I was playing like just like a alternate version of whatever song it was. Like, it wanted to sound like my own song that people might not even recognize from the original. So I think that's how we ended up with such a diverse group of songs genre-wise, that I felt like I could make different from the originals and really make my own. There's also some kind of like deep cuts in there. We didn't want to choose like the most obvious songs from whatever artist.
From each artist. Is Tony Berg in LA? Am I remembering?
Yeah, he
that
is.
Right? What was it like to create an album collaboratively, like over a distance? Were you sending songs across the country and having to try to like collaborate that way?
Yeah, it was cool. Definitely a product of the pandemic, and I don't think either of us would want to do an album that way again, but it was an interesting experience. Like, I was just recording all my stuff at home. It was kind of fun to take my time with it and just like work on my own schedule and have no one else around to listen in or tell me do it this way or that way. And then I just send him everything and he would give me notes. So that was kind of cool. I felt really independent.
That's super interesting to just like be in your own space, but also in the studio at the same time.
Yeah, totally. It was cool.
What was the most challenging part of creating that album?
I think it was just hard. Going back to the last question, I think the distance was hard because normally you record and you're together and you can give notes in real time, but like some days I would do a bunch of takes on one thing and send it to him and it'd be like, no, I think you need to redo all this. And so that part of it, just not having the instant communication, sometimes made me like go down a rabbit hole that I wouldn't have otherwise, and vice versa.
That sounds really frustrating to like spin your wheels on your own instead of like being able to just have feedback right away.
Yeah, it wasn't too bad, but it was kind of like I just missed having the instant kind of like back and forth, and vice versa, just not knowing what was being put on the songs and then hearing like a mix back with a bunch of instruments. And I pretty much always loved what he was putting on the songs, but it was a little scary to be like sending him off and like, I don't know what's going to happen, and hear it again a few days later.
Yeah, I'm going through a little bit of that myself at the moment because my producer's on tour in Europe, and I'm very like type A and controlling when it comes to arrangements, but there are still those moments where you hear something back and you're like, oh wow, this is like, I wasn't there, like a whole process went into this that I wasn't there for.
Yeah.
And you have to like really trust who you work with.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, shout out to Graham. Okay, so I love your new album, Crooked Tree.
Thank you.
It's so fun. I mean, even before we had this interview scheduled, it has been like one of my road trip albums of the summer. And I'm curious, so like you're a bluegrass artist, and you're many things, but in some senses you're a bluegrass artist, and you have a deep knowledge of the form. And there are a lot of specific formal requirements when it comes to making a bluegrass record.
Yeah.
So how did you approach like fitting your own contemporary personal stories into a tradition that has so many specific conventions? Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah, I think it was like a really fun challenge for me to try to think like which stories in my life could fit into this this tradition of music, and kind of made me go back to my roots in the genre. Like my grandfather was a banjo player, and that's like really where bluegrass started in my family. And so I went back and visited my grandmother on the old farm where my dad grew up in Illinois, and that inspired some of the songs, just thinking about where the music started in my family. And thinking about the festivals that I grew up going to and the people that I listened to as a kid. And also my collaborators like Melody Walker and Ketch Secor and Becky Buller and Mark Simos, the people I wrote the songs with. They were all so helpful and really helped draw out of me these stories that I was wanting to tell.
That's so cool. I didn't know you had any Midwest roots until I heard Flatland Girl and the collaboration with Margot Price. And I was like, oh, this is a match made in heaven. This is fantastic. Yeah, I love her, Midwest Farmer's Daughter. Definitely wanted to get her on that track because she has the Midwest farm roots as well. What was the story behind Crooked Tree, the title track? I think the chorus is so powerful that goes, crooked tree can't fit into the mill machine.
Well, I wrote that one with Melody Walker, and we had both seen this quote from Tom Waits about kind of like using the crooked tree as a metaphor for his life and taking the road less traveled. And I think it's a quote that's been kind of regurgitated in different ways by different people. But we thought it would be really cool to take that idea and write a song about kind of embracing who you are. And I think like everyone has things that make them different and kind of like a crooked tree. And we both felt like that when we were growing up. Like Melody wore a back brace in school. She had scoliosis, and kind of that made her feel different from other kids. And for me, I lost my hair from alopecia when I was 3, so I grew up looking different than all the other kids at school. And I'd been wanting to write a song that kind of addressed that topic for a long time, but it was just hard to know what angle to come at it from. And then this song just felt perfect. It seemed like it could apply to a lot of different people's lives, and it's kind of a feeling that I think everyone has at times.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, I think of it too in terms of like our work and resistance, and how like sometimes the world wants us to fit into a narrow mold so that we can be more productive for capitalism. And I think it's really powerful to remind people that the thing that makes you different or inconvenient is often the thing that makes you the most powerful.
Yeah, totally.
I also really want to dig into The River Knows, which is like a spin on the murder ballad tradition. And it addresses sexual violence, which I think at this moment in history, when Roe v. Wade has just been overturned, like, oh man, that song has just been weighing on me. How are you thinking about that now? Like, do you feel a responsibility as an artist to speak on gender-based violence? And like, how do you feel like you can have an impact in this like sort of chaotic historic moment?
Yeah, it's really hard to know. I definitely have felt like after Roe got overturned, when I was singing that song, I felt like I could really it felt like it took on a new meaning for me. I felt like I was getting more emotional singing it.
Yeah.
But I don't really have all the answers on like how we're all supposed to respond to it. It's so hard to know what to do. I think for me, I just have to speak out and let people know where I stand. Continue to support like organizations that are helping, but it is like, I feel like we all feel somewhat powerless right now, and it's hard to know what to do.
Brutal.
But I think as artists, we are supposed to remind people that like you were saying, like we're not supposed to fit into this mold. We are all like these creative spirits that are meant to be free, and we need to continue to express ourselves.
Can you tell me about touring this record? Like, what is it like to be in a band, like capital B, Golden Highway, like after years of presenting as a solo artist? Like, of course, you've had amazing collaborators, but right now you're in a proper band. So like, what's the most fun part about touring in a band?
Yeah, it's awesome. I mean, my touring band is so much fun because we've all been friends for like almost a decade now. We all kind of grew up playing bluegrass and roots music, and it was basically just calling up my friends and being like, who would be my first choice to be in this bluegrass band with me, and everyone said yes, amazingly. And yeah, it's really, really fun. And I've had like amazing people in my band over the last couple of years. This one does feel a little different since I kind of named it as a band, and it just feels like I definitely have been trying to make everyone get little heavily featured throughout the show, and definitely want it to feel like a cohesive unit.
That's so fun. I would love to see this live show. What's your favorite song to perform off of this record?
That's a tough one. I've been loving playing Dooley's Farm live because people have kind of started singing along with it, and
nice.
That's just a fun one.
That's like a great contemporary moonshiner rocker.
Oh, thanks.
Something I'm wondering about is like, you're somebody who's been performing since you were itty bitty. And I know for myself, like the older I get and the more I perform, you really notice those micro changes in your voice and your body as you're playing. Like my voice is definitely getting wackier. My playing gets looser. So like, have you noticed changes, like physical changes that you're accommodating and working with as you're touring, like, you know, into your 30s?
I think my voice has gotten like deeper sounding. When I listen back to videos or recordings from my early 20s, it sounds so, I don't know, just very high sound. I don't know how to describe it. Almost thin, or like, not thin exactly, but I feel like my voice has gotten more resonant and I can definitely hit like some more low notes that I couldn't before. So I'm really enjoying how my voice is changing and maturing. And I feel more confident too, like belting out higher notes. I feel like it's just maybe touring so much has made my voice get a little stronger. And so far for me, it's been positive changes. But I do feel sometimes like my hands get tired. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's that I used to practice more. I haven't noticed any major changes, except I think my voice has changed quite a bit in the last couple of years.
I think that's fascinating. That's why we're lucky to, I mean, I know it is annoying when people film shows, but I also enjoy seeing artists that I like in like live performances and like being able to see YouTube clips as the years go by, because I think that's like one of the cool gifts of the digital age, is that you can see artists like changing over time.
Yeah, totally.
I was listening to Alec Baldwin's podcast a few years back, and he asked Tom York, like, what do you think your primary musical skill and identity is? Like, do you think of yourself as a songwriter, band leader? Tom said, like, I think of myself as a singer. And I'm curious, like, what would your answer be to that question? Do you think of yourself as a guitarist, a singer, a songwriter, a performer, a producer? Like, what would you say if you had to introduce yourself? Like, hi, I'm Molly Tuttle and I...
Yeah, I think I heard that same podcast, and I was really interested in that he said he was a singer, because like I think of him as kind of a songwriter, I guess.
Yes.
And composer.
I felt that way too.
Yeah. I don't know what my answer would be. I think I'm the most like blown away by songwriting. I'm kind of like the most interested in songwriting, but I don't think I'm like the best at songwriting. I guess I would have to say guitar player.
Wow. That's really interesting, because when I tried to guess how you would answer, and my gut was saying she's a songwriter. Like, that's what we're going to see.
That's nice of you.
That's where we're going to see the surprises, like, over the next few decades of this person's career.
Well, I guess that's what I would hope that people would know me as.
Okay, the last thing that I want to ask you to do on this interview is a silly thing. It's a lightning round. My spiel on the lightning round is that you should just answer from your gut and don't think about it too hard. And that's that. Is that cool?
Yes.
Okay. This is the Molly Tuttle lightning round here on Basic Folk. If you were not a human, what animal would you be?
A sloth.
Okay, I'm sorry I'm breaking my own rules and like chit-chatting in the midst of the lightning round. However, you play guitar very fast, and so I have to say I don't see it, but I love that maybe like deep in your heart there's like a slow moving,
yes, definitely.
Okay. Are you competitive?
Sometimes.
Who is your favorite lyricist working right now?
I love Phoebe Bridgers.
Same. Do you have any pre-show rituals, and if so, what are they?
I don't, except my band we've started doing a huddle where we put our hands in and say, "Go highway." It's really
Go
cheesy.
Highway. That's cute. That's really cute. If you could go on a road trip with any musician, living or dead, who would it be?
Whoa. I'm gonna go with Joni Mitchell.
Joni Mitchell. That's actually a really good choice. I bet she would tell a lot of really, really good stories.
Yeah.
What is your most useful non-musical skill?
That's a hard one. I'm like, I don't have any skills.
That can't be true. Can you cook?
No.
Okay, that's the one.
Oh,
that
I know.
came to mind.
I can make a pretty good pour over coffee.
Oh, nice. That is a really useful skill. You have to have like surgeon's hands to do that well. What is the best age to be?
Ooh, that's a good one. Let's see. So far, I'm 29, so I don't really know what it's like to be any older age, but I want to say like 35 because I'd like to believe my best years are ahead of me.
I love that, and I agree. I think they are. Are you going to retire or work till you die?
I'd like to semi-retire. I love playing shows, so I don't want to stop doing that, but I would like to take more time off when I'm older to just explore the world. I love traveling, but on tour you don't get to see anywhere hardly. So
whenever I go on tour, people are like, "Oh, go to this museum or go to this restaurant," and I'm like, "No, I'm gonna see a hotel, and that's gonna be it."
Someday I'll really travel.
What was the last movie you loved?
Oh, I saw that movie in theaters. It's called like Everything, Everywhere, All the Time.
I heard that was
one?
Fantastic.
Yeah, it was awesome.
Yes, that's a good recommendation. I should get that.
Yeah.
And finally, what does success mean to you?
I think success to me is, I guess it's accomplishing like dreams that I've had since I was young. I've always wanted to be a musician and play shows to lots of people and get to share songs with people that resonate with them. And to me, that's success, is just kind of living up to your own dreams and setting goals and accomplishing them.
I love it. Molly Tuttle, thank you so much for being a guest on Basic Folk. Everybody go see Molly with her band Golden Highway. They are on tour. They have a new album out, Crooked Tree. You've been such a great guest, and I'm so honored to talk about your music on the pod.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
This episode of Basic Folk was produced by me, Cindy. Our music was composed by Alex Stanton. You can find Basic Folk episodes wherever you get podcasts at our website, basicfolk.com, on the Bluegrass Situation Podcast Network, or you can search for us on the SiriusXM app under Basic Folk. All right, we'll talk to you next time. Bye.
Bye.